everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint. In this tutorial, this video is going to be a look at Citadel's texture paint. This is Agrellan Earth. You might have seen me use that quite a few times before. I use it on all of my Arcadia Quest models, but I thought I'd make a standalone video about it just in case you don't watch Arcadia Quest videos, so you can see how I use it and what it does. We'll take some Mornfang Brown by Citadel. It's a base coat, so it's opaque, and we'll pop the lid off of that bad boy. Like so, and then we're going to be applying this all over the base. This was already primed in leather brown, so it's going to paint on top of that fairly easily. It's a similar, well, it's a brown. It's a similar colour. It's a different brown, and I don't have to be super neat with this, but you do want to get a nice even. Well, I suppose actually it doesn't need to be even. You just need to coat it. It can be thicker and thinner in places because we're going to be going over the top of this and essentially completely covering this bad boy. Let's see. Just go. I advise keeping the brush nice and flat as you sort of push it under the model. Keeping it as flat as I can, not to get any on his shoes. Obviously, you guys have got a lot more. You can get this a lot closer to your face, and you can obviously angle it around whatever lets you see just a little bit better. You can certainly get better views than I'm working with here, but nevertheless, it's not very difficult. So I think I've got everywhere now, just maybe not quite under this boot here. And this technique will work for any model. So, this is just the easy base coat. This bit's the easy bit. And it doesn't even, as I mentioned, doesn't actually need to be that neat because we're going to paint over it. We're going to be painting over it with something that's going to be very uneven anyway. But you want to sort of cover on 100% coverage if you can, just so when the Agrellan Earth cracks, you've got a nice colour to show through underneath. That is the Mornfang Brown done. So just wait for that to dry. And then once that's dry, you want some Agrellan Earth. Give it a nice shake. Shake that bad boy up. Ooh, look how thick and gloopy it is. Perfect. And then you're going to want to take it, sort of scoop it, get a lot on the brush, sort of a big dollop. And I'd start under the model before you put too much on, because it's the hardest bit to control. And again, I'd start by applying it very, very similar. Just cut a little bit on his trousers there because it's so thick. Start very, very similar to the Mornfang and just sort of working it in just to give it the colour coverage to begin with. That's going to take some time. Again, it's just so thick, and you don't really want to get it on the model you just spent hours painting. Obviously, different models, it's different. Sometimes it's a lot easier, sometimes it's even harder. But yeah, I might even switch down to a smaller brush to begin with. I am going to be starting to pile this up, and I'm already starting to do so, just so I can sort of see what's going on. So I'm just going to try and work it in around his shoes. Now, it doesn't matter too much if you get it, especially on the sort of soles of his shoe, because don't forget, it's sort of like a deserty, muddy, cracked earth terrain. So it's very possible, semi-realistic, that he would have the dirt on his shoes anyway. He wouldn't have it on his kneecap, which I will tidy up afterwards. It'll just take a little splash of purple and that'll be good as new. So we're getting there. Sort of working it towards the shoe as carefully as I can. Again, you guys wouldn't have the camera causing you any grief. I'm going to stick with my good excuses. I think filming stuff is a reasonable excuse. Got a little bit on his shoe there, but as I mentioned, I think it's to be a little bit expected. If he stood on this stuff and it's all broken and cracked, You'd get at least dusty, wouldn't you? Right, so then you can see, you could see it there, it's all uneven, you can see it catching in the light, but that's just not really going to matter that much. Then once you've got a decent coverage, so you know the colour's going to take well, just get a little bit under here, you can just move it around, there we go, a little bit under his knee here. And once you've got that on, then you can start really look at getting as much as I can on the brush, just plopping that on nice and thick, and just start trying to level that out, moving it around, keeping it nice and thick. I think you want about, it's hard to measure, but probably about 1/2 mil, maybe even 1 mil thick. I personally have never got this too thick, and even when it's too thin, I still think it looks decent, but I've never gone too thick, so maybe we can do that today, see what happens. And just working it around the model, plopping it on, spreading it in, evening it up. Get some under the model. Like that. You can see it's sort of wavy. It doesn't need to be perfectly even either. So it's quite an easy thing to do. Just try and get some around his foot. It's more difficult the less base you've got to work with. But if you can try and do it, it pays off at the end. So I've got not enough, it's just this troublesome area at the back. You can scrape the brush a little bit as well, get that off on the edge and then work it back in, and there we go. I would say that'll do, pig. I'm just going to try and get a little bit in here, just let it flow. There we go. Let it flow itself. I'm going to wash off the brush. Just get rid of all that, and then I'm just going to go see if I can tidy up the edges just a little bit. I'm going to be painting around the edges at the end anyway, but this is just going to smooth out any of those lumps that would be created. That's just going to make it a little bit easier once this is dry. This is going to take quite a while to dry, unfortunately. So I normally leave this overnight actually, but I'll see if I can do it a bit quicker. I'm going to see if I can time lapse this, I think, just for something interesting to do, really. I'm sure you guys can imagine what's going to happen, but I'll see what I can do. And here is that time lapse as I promised, and it doesn't take too long. It was a couple of hours I think I left this recording, and it got some pretty decent footage. You can see those cracks forming nicely. It slowly builds up a nice deserty, cracked, scorched earth style base on this model. So interesting to watch, I think, but let's carry on with the tutorial. So look, that's a little bit difficult to see, but that's how the Agrellan earth comes out. Pretty nice. You can see just here, that's probably where I've not applied it thick enough, and it's not cracked quite as well, but you know, deserts are uneven. I think that's to be expected. And this is where it was super thick, and you can see it's quite raised and bobbly. So then the last bit is just taking that Mornfang brown again, and pop open the lid. Now I'm going to just paint direct from here, nice and thick. Then it's just touching up around the outside, just paint it back over. Second coat shall make it a better looking colour, but it's also just painting over anywhere that Agrellan earth managed to catch. Hopefully whiz through this in editing, because this is probably a little bit boring. And voila. And then I'm also just going to brush a rinse. Let's also see what happens if we reapply. If I could find where I'd put it, let's see what happens if you just reapply a little bit of Earthshade. Let's just make that thicker. Let's just see what happens, because I'd say I didn't make that thick enough, and I think it was a nice example to show you guys what happens with varying thicknesses of the Agrellan earth. But now let's just see if that can fix itself with an additional coat. And here you go, this is the final finished version, and I do think that little touch up, that little fix I did actually work. Not as well as it did the first time, but it definitely tidied up and made it blend it a little bit more closely to those better cracked areas. Now do please let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Obviously it was in real time. I was thinking and talking while painting, which I don't think I've ever done on the channel, so it's a little bit of a different sort of insight into my thought train, that sort of, and the process I go through. If you're interested in seeing this whole model, it is on the channel. It's Jay from Masmora in the Arcadia Quest universe. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you again soon.